Long before science celebrities filled television screens, before theoretical physics captured the public imagination, there was a Jewish-born scientist whose theories revolutionized our understanding of reality and whose equation E equals mc squared became perhaps the most famous formula in history. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Europe, early 20th century. The Industrial Revolution had transformed society. Newtonian physics seemed complete, and most physicists believed they were simply refining an essentially finished picture of the universe. In this era of scientific complacency, one man saw beyond the limitations of the prevailing paradigm. Einstein, with his unruly hair, expressive eyes, and casual style, was an unlikely revolutionary. Born in 1879 in Ulm, Germany, to secular Jewish parents, he showed no remarkable precocity as a child. Though he excelled in mathematics and physics, he struggled with the rigid educational system. Yet something drove Einstein beyond conventional scientific thinking. A childlike wonder and extraordinary mental experiments that allowed him to perceive reality differently than his contemporaries. According to his own accounts, the thought experiment that led to his special theory of relativity came to him as a teenager. What would happen if you could chase a beam of light? The complete mathematical framework would take years to develop, but this simple question would change our understanding of the universe forever. Einstein published his special theory of relativity in 1905, his miraculous year, or annus mirabilis, during which he published 4 groundbreaking papers while working full-time as a patent examiner. He would later develop the general theory of relativity, predicting gravity's effect on light and space-time itself. Through thought experiments of remarkable elegance and mathematical analysis of astonishing insight, he revolutionized how humanity understands the most fundamental aspects of reality. His conclusion: physical reality operates according to principles that often contradict our intuitive understanding but reveal themselves through mathematical beauty. Consider how revolutionary this approach was. In a scientific culture that increasingly valued experimental data, Einstein introduced thought experiments based on imagined scenarios involving moving trains, accelerating elevators, and riding on beams of light. In an age that sought ever more precise measurements, he focused on fundamental symmetries and invariances. Einstein's first lesson: true scientific breakthrough begins with the willingness to question fundamental assumptions. The moment you accept the prevailing conceptual framework as fixed is the moment you limit yourself to incremental progress rather than transformative insight. I have no special talent. I'm only passionately curious. If you had visited Einstein's office, you wouldn't have found elaborate experimental apparatus, but a simple desk, perhaps a blackboard with equations, and a man engaged in deep thought, conducting the Gedanken experiments, thought experiments, for which he became famous. Unlike experimentalists focused on measuring phenomena with increasing precision, Einstein wasn't primarily interested in gathering more data within existing frameworks. He was interested in reconceiving the frameworks themselves. What made this approach so powerful? Einstein wasn't primarily focused on accumulating evidence for existing theories. He understood that scientific revolution doesn't come from collecting more data points, but from seeing familiar evidence in entirely new ways. "It's not that I'm so smart," he once said, "but I stay with the questions much longer." This persistent questioning allowed him to see possibilities that others missed, not because they lacked data, but because they stopped asking questions too soon. When he developed his theory of relativity, Einstein wasn't trying to explain a single anomalous experimental result. He was addressing fundamental conceptual issues about the nature of space, time, and motion. The theory emerged not from some crucial experiment, but from recognizing conceptual inconsistencies in classical physics that others had simply accepted. Einstein's second lesson: transformative insight comes from persistent questioning, not superior intelligence. Cultivate the habit of staying with problems longer than others, questioning assumptions others take for granted. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. For all his revolutionary theories, Einstein maintained a profound appreciation for the aesthetic dimension of scientific understanding. His work wasn't driven by mere problem-solving, but by a deep sense of wonder at the universe's beauty and order. Einstein recognized that aesthetic sensibilities, the search for symmetry, simplicity, and elegance in theoretical formulations, often guide scientists toward deeper truths about physical reality. He famously remarked that if a theory isn't beautiful, it probably isn't right. Though not conventionally religious, he maintained what he called a cosmic religious sense that informed his scientific pursuits. Unlike some scientists who might view physics as merely describing phenomena without deeper meaning, Einstein maintained a reverence for what his equations revealed about reality. The relationship between Einstein's scientific and humanitarian concerns reveals much about his integrated worldview. Though primarily known for theoretical physics, he spoke out passionately against nationalism, racism, and militarism throughout his life. Einstein's third lesson: cultivate wonder alongside rigor. True scientific vision emerges from the integration of aesthetic sensibility with mathematical precision. Challenge yourself to see beyond technical problems to the deeper questions they raise about the nature of reality. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Even as he revolutionized theoretical physics, Einstein maintained a remarkably balanced perspective on the relationship between scientific achievement and personal life. He had little patience for academic formality or status. While his work demanded intense concentration, he regularly found time for sailing, playing violin, and taking long walks. When asked about his daily schedule at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, Einstein remarked that he had arranged his life to require as few decisions as possible about ordinary matters, like clothing and meals, a deliberate strategy to preserve mental energy for the questions that most engaged him. This focus extended to his social and political positions. While others might adjust their views to changing circumstances, Einstein maintained remarkable consistency in his core convictions, advocating for pacifism, democratic socialism, Zionism without nationalism, and racial equality in America. Yet Einstein wasn't an impractical idealist. He understood that scientific theories must ultimately connect with observable reality. When new evidence suggested modifications to his theories, he incorporated them. When the rise of Nazism made his earlier pacifism untenable, he reluctantly supported Allied military efforts. Einstein's fourth lesson: maintain principled consistency while remaining open to new evidence. Find balance between the theoretical and practical dimensions of your work. Simplify where possible to preserve energy for what matters most. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Perhaps Einstein's most enduring quality was his childlike curiosity and willingness to embrace uncertainty. Though capable of extraordinary mathematical precision, he valued the questions that emerged at the frontiers of understanding more than the established certainties. This embrace of uncertainty reflected a profound understanding that knowledge advances not through accumulating final answers, but through formulating better questions. Einstein understood that each scientific breakthrough reveals new mysteries rather than providing ultimate resolution. In his later years, Einstein devoted himself to seeking a unified field theory that would integrate electromagnetism with gravitation. Though he never achieved this goal, he pursued it with persistent curiosity rather than frustration. This combination of deep conviction about fundamental principles and comfort with uncertainty characterized his entire career. Einstein maintained consistent confidence in the essential correctness of general relativity, even during the years when observational confirmation was lacking. His interest in the boundaries of knowledge was evident in his famous debates with Niels Bohr about quantum mechanics. While Einstein accepted the mathematical validity of quantum theory, he questioned whether its probabilistic interpretation represented a complete description of physical reality. Einstein's fifth lesson: embrace uncertainty as the precondition for discovery. True knowledge advances not by accumulating final answers, but by formulating better questions. The ultimate irony of Einstein's life is that this quintessential scientific revolutionary became, in his later years, surprisingly conservative in his scientific views. As quantum mechanics developed interpretations he found philosophically unsatisfying, Einstein found himself increasingly isolated from the mainstream of theoretical physics. This leads to what scholars call the Einstein paradox. How could someone so revolutionary in his early career become relatively conservative later? He wasn't driven by revolutionary temperament, but by deep commitment to certain principles of scientific understanding: determinism, realism, unified explanation. More than 7 decades after his death, physicists are still grappling with the tensions between Einstein's deterministic vision of physics and quantum indeterminacy. The quest for a theory of everything that would unite general relativity with quantum mechanics remains perhaps the greatest unsolved problem in theoretical physics. In an age of increasing specialization, the Einsteinian approach, seeking unifying principles across seemingly disparate phenomena, valuing conceptual clarity alongside mathematical formalism, and questioning fundamental assumptions, is more essential than ever. Consider this: Einstein transformed physics not primarily through mathematical virtuosity or experimental ingenuity, but through conceptual clarity and persistent questioning. He did it by seeing familiar phenomena in fundamentally new ways, by recognizing patterns and connections that others missed, not for lack of data, but for lack of conceptual courage. You may never formulate a theory with Einstein's impact, but you can bring the same quality of persistent curiosity and conceptual imagination to your own field. You can choose to question foundations rather than merely build upon them, to seek underlying principles rather than merely applying established techniques. Remember, the goal isn't to become Einstein, but to follow his example by cultivating the persistent curiosity and conceptual imagination that allow fundamentally new understanding to emerge. If you found value in today's exploration of Einsteinian wisdom, consider how you might apply these 5 lessons in your own life. Question fundamental assumptions that others take for granted, recognizing that transformative insight often begins with challenging the framework itself. Value persistent curiosity over technical virtuosity, staying with questions long after others have moved on to seemingly more productive territory. Integrate aesthetic appreciation with analytical rigor, recognizing that beauty and elegance often signal deeper truth. Balance principled consistency with openness to new evidence, simplifying your approach without distorting the complexity of what you study. Embrace uncertainty as the precondition for discovery, valuing good questions as much as definitive answers. Pick just one of these principles to practice this week. Notice how it changes your approach to problems and possibilities in your own domain of expertise or interest. Until next time, learn from the past to create an extraordinary future. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Albert Einstein.